Panetta, a Democrat from California who was on the House Budget Committee. Congressman, you've had a chance, I think, by now to read this new statement from the president. Says he's having a meeting with Russ Vought today to talk about cuts that could be permanent. Your reaction?
Yeah, he shouldn't be meeting just with his cabinet. He should actually be meeting with Democrats. We should be negotiating to get our way out of this government shutdown. You're hearing about the potential damage that a shutdown causes, and you're hearing about the extra damage that President Trump and his administration are going to cause with these types of cuts and layoffs and mass firings. Instead of focusing on that, he should be focusing on getting the government open. And that takes negotiations. Look, John, I've been in this position about 4 terms now. I've been through 29 continuing resolutions to keep our budget open. And I can tell you that each and every one of those 29 CRs were a result of actual negotiations. Democrats and Republicans coming together to talk their way out of this situation, reopen the government, but at the same time, Democrats are also making sure that we're fighting for people's health care.
Clearly, the president is making these threats to try to put pressure on Democrats here. What kind of pressure do you feel when he's threatening in Russ Vought or threatening permanent job losses?
What this administration needs to realize is that when they cut $18 billion from infrastructure from New York, when they start to have these mass firings of federal employees, they're not just hurting Democratic states, they're not just hurting Democrats, they're hurting Republicans, they're hurting law enforcement, they're hurting public safety, they're hurting good-paying jobs, they're hurting working families. This is not just about hurting Democrats. This is about hurting America, and unfortunately, this is the type of administration that we've been dealing with. But they need to realize that in order to get out of this, you're going to have to negotiate. You got to get back at the table, and you got to be ready to actually have serious conversations. No more of these posting of memes and joking around. This is a serious issue. People's lives and livelihoods are at stake. And unfortunately, we're dealing with an administration that I believe just doesn't understand that, or the only thing they do understand is being cruel and cutting jobs and hurting working families.
If they're going to go through with this, though, what leverage do you have? How can you protect these workers in this funding?
Yeah, this is something where we have to understand that we have to come together, not just as a party, but literally as a country. And the people in red and blue states have to make sure to hold their representatives accountable and put pressure on them. From the very beginning, we've said we have to negotiate, like we've done in the past 29 times that there's been continuing resolutions. But unfortunately, this time, Republicans who are in charge of the House, Republicans who are in charge of the Senate, and you have a Republican in the White House, they are in charge, yet they're failing to negotiate. They didn't negotiate when they passed the CR out of the House. They didn't negotiate when they put up those votes in the Senate. Now is the time to negotiate. Democrats and Republicans need to come together, open up the government, protect our health care, and reduce costs.
The real action, forgive me, is over on the Senate side here, right, where Republicans do have a majority, but Democrats have the opportunity to block things from being passed here. I had the chance to speak with Democratic Senator Chris Coons last night, and I want you to listen carefully to what he's saying here. He's absolutely supporting the Democratic action right now, and he wants to see the guarantees for an extension of the Obamacare subsidies. But listen to what he says about a possible avenue for making a deal.
There is agreement that we should be willing to negotiate an extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies and a reform to them. Republicans want to reform them. Democrats want to extend them. And they're insisting, as of now, that we all vote to reopen the government, and then we'll start negotiating. I'm encouraging them to be serious and concrete about who will negotiate, how, over what, and with what deadline.
What about that? If you squint there, you can sort of see the contours of a proposal. You tell us what we will be talking about in a very specific way after we vote to reopen the government. Is that a way out?
Look, I think if anybody can articulate a kabuki theater, it's Chris Coons, in the sense that I respect everything that gentleman says. He's an amazing senator, and he understands the importance of these types of constructive conversations, that are negotiations, that actually lead to something concrete in ensuring that basically we can reopen the government and protect our health care. I think if anybody understands that, he can, and that's what he was trying to say when it comes to having these types of conversations based on the relationships that they have there in the Senate. But as we know, they need 7 Democrats. That's why they should be negotiating. That's why they should be having these discussions. That's why someone like Chris Coons is at the forefront of these types of conversations where they're actually talking about doing the right thing when it comes to reopening our government and protecting our health care.
Look, you've been at this a while. I could see the wheels turning as you were listening to word by word what Chris Coons was very carefully saying there. We'll see where these discussions go over the next several days. Congressman Jimmy Panetta from California, thank you very much. Sarah?